You've been watching international news or the few news outlets that tell you the truth of what's going on in the world. You can see that Western societies are little by little they're collapsing all over the world, whether it's in London, Paris, Brussels, the United States, and it's all due to what the politicians have let happen. Every time when I go back to visit Europe, whether it's France, England, Belgium, other places, it's like more and more the countries that I used to know when I was a teenager, they little by little are disappearing and turning into third world countries, and the unpredictability of walking the street and not feeling safe is becoming the same like the third world countries that I used to operate in as a professional soldier. The only ones that can make a change are the people themselves. I don't think governments care that much about what's going on. And I do think it's all part of globalization and the new world order. The more divided people are, the easier they are to control. So yeah, I think people need to come together, put their hands together and form it into one fist and stand up for what's going on, because Western society is being destroyed as we know it. And
in 2017, when three Muslim men went across London Bridge, slitting people's throats and shouting, "This is for Allah." And the Mayor of London and the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, came out and said that we need to address online radicalization. Theresa May set up somebody to look into the definition of extremism. What have they actually done in all of these years? Absolutely nothing. And
being overrun by Islamic illegal immigrants. You have illegal immigrants committing all kinds of monstrous crimes in the UK, yet the government does little about it other than to sit back and take more immigrants in. But make no mistake, the people of the UK are done playing games, and now they're taking matters into their own hands.
Murray Douglas, let's start with the UK riots. Keir Starmer, the police, the media have all been clear who they arrest. The far right, they say, fueled by disinformation online. There's even suggestions of banning platforms like X and cracking down further on free speech. Is that the answer to what we are seeing, which are really clearly deep underlying issues in community country from, places like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Rotherham, Middlesbrough, London, and even as far as Belfast in Northern Ireland?
Well, yes, this all started after a 17-year-old stabbed to death 3 girls at a Taylor Swift themed dance party in the town of Southport. And the sense clearly in the immediate aftermath of that, this is an observation, was that the authorities were withholding the identity of the suspect. Now, there are some reasons why they might do that, but obviously tensions locally were extremely high. And the way to try to control the information obviously completely backfired, as you would expect it to. And that's led to these riots. Extremely disturbing. These riots of themselves provoked counter-riots where identifiably Muslim young men, some armed, have been also shown on camera attacking people in the streets. And this is really just a completely appalling, and I'm sorry to say this, completely predictable situation. Indeed, I can say it's predictable because I said exactly this sort of thing would start happening 7 years ago or so in my book, The Strange Death of Europe. It's proved right in such circumstances, because you don't want to be proved right about something like this. You want people to listen and change their policy. But, the last few days have shown the Labour government refusing to concede that there is anything other than what they call far-right violence going on. They claim that there isn't a two-tier policing system in the UK, which everybody with their own eyes can see is not the case. Clearly there is a two-tier policing system. These areas where this has happened in, what's more, are all areas where there were riots in 2011. And as I write in The Spectator one of the interesting things about that is that all of these areas are, among other things, areas where migration has continued to increase and joblessness has gone up. Now just think of those two factors, anyone watching. You're forcing immigration onto these areas and you do nothing to improve the lot in these areas. Of course nobody should be on the streets. The unbelievable hooliganism and thuggery of recent days should repel everybody. But, you know, very often when there is some kind of violence or unrest, we hear the political leaders and the wise heads in the commentariat saying we need to address underlying causes. Why does nobody...
Illegal Muslim immigrants wreaking havoc in the UK. And when the people of the UK have finally had enough with the imposters who hate their country, the government decides to blame the problem on social media platforms like X instead of on the illegal immigrants or often extremists that they're allowing into their country. They have ignored the countless violent crimes committed by the extremist immigrants who they allow into their country. This is not just the case.
Channel in the UK, where quite clearly the journalists are trying not to reveal part of the story. What they're trying not to reveal is what they call aged men in the area intimidating and harassing journalists. Well, these aren't, you know, once again you get back to the endless euphemism and lying that is just prevalent across our media. These are not, you know, Hong Kong residents.
But severe incompetence by the leaders of these Western national powerhouses like the UK.
Now, there are various segments of the left in the UK blaming X, formerly Twitter, for inciting violence. But Douglas, it's one of the few places where you can see what is happening on the ground without that media spin.
That's right, Rita. I mean, I've just seen a report from another people. They are, regrettably, organised Muslim groups. And, you know, they're being whipped up by people, presumably in their community, but also by left-wing and other activists, obviously by the people on the street as well, to come out in force. Now, the idea that the answer to that is to crack down on Twitter, the X, is an absolute case study of the failure of the political class in the UK. I remember in 2017, 3 Muslim men went across London Bridge, splitting people's throats and shouting, "This is for Allah." And the Mayor of London and the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, came out and said that we need to address online radicalization. You know, and then Theresa May set up somebody to look into the definition of extremism. You know, what have they actually done in all of these years? Absolutely nothing.